I'm sure that people will join us throughout the next couple of minutes. So John, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce Runner Safety Awareness Week. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I just want to welcome everyone. My name is John Hunterkamp, and I founded the Run Collective. And 3 years ago, we started Runner Safety Awareness Week for several reasons. And then every year, it seems like there's more and more layers and more top topics to tackle. So we're excited to kick it off with Julie from Train Your Roar, and obviously Verna, our first speaker. And this is one of at least 20 things this week. So I know we got a lot going on, but we will be recording most of the discussions, including this one. So if you miss it or you want to come back and revisit it next week, we'll have it all up on our site. But welcome, have a great week, and you'll see me on some of the panels in the upcoming week or so. But good luck, Verna, and good luck, Julie, and take it away. I'm gonna become an attendee now and enjoy.
Right, I will do my best to figure out how to do that. So, hi, John. Well, welcome, Verna. Thank you for joining us. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us in this discussion. My name is Julie Morrill. I am the co-founder and owner of Roar Training. We are a safety and self-defense consulting company, and we're going to be co-hosting a number of the events this week. So we're really excited to be a part of Runner Safety Awareness Week. A little sad we can't be doing it in person like we did last year, but the advantage is that we get to talk to fabulous people like Verna. So Verna, if you aren't familiar with her already, and I imagine a number of you are, she's a mom of 4, she's an accomplished runner, she's a elementary school teacher, and as if that weren't enough, she also founded and manages the Instagram page Native Women Running, which has, at last I looked, well over 16,000 followers now. And Native Women Running was founded to highlight the accomplishments in the running of Native women runners. And you also use this platform, Verna, to highlight occasionally the unfortunate incidents of missing and murdered Indigenous women who experience 10 times the rates of violence than the national average. So we'll be talking a little bit more about that today. So we'll talk about Native women running, some of the challenges that Native women runners face, and what we can all do to make running safer for everyone. So welcome, Verna. Is there anything you would like to add to that introduction?
Oh, yes. One of the ways we introduce ourselves in Navajo, because I'm from the Navajo Nation, is we start by introducing ourselves and our clan. That's how we distinguish ourselves and how we introduce ourselves to other people and to our Navajo people. So I'm gonna do that for you real quick. Yeah, it's a Verna Yenashia, Torich in the Hashkushi Bashashin, Tanazani Dashishe, Toheklini Dashanala. My name is Verna. I am born of the Bitter Water and Mud people, and also my maternal is from the Tangle people, and paternal is the water flows together. So that is my clan, and I'm from the Navajo Nation. So yes, I have to laugh when you say accomplished runner, or yeah, it's just accomplished runner. So yes,
you are. You're an ultra runner, and that's pretty.
Yes, I'm an ultra runner. So yes, you described everything. Like I said, I'm a mom of 4. And I'm really thankful for this opportunity and just really proud of Native Women Running and what it's become. I always say I created it, but it's really these women who I want to give a platform, because I always say it's not about me, it's about them. And I'm really thankful that they've given me that opportunity to just highlight their stories from wherever they are. So
thank you for being with us, and thank you for that beautiful introduction.
Yes.
It was a real treat. Thank you.
Yes.
So let's just start kind of from the beginning. How did you get into running, and what does running mean to you?
Well, I started running. I share my journey about, I ran a race in 2007 when one of my best friends died, and I think it was a couple months, maybe a couple weeks after she died, and I had 2 little boys, and I decided to run this like 2.1 mile race in the town that we lived in, and to do it for her. And when I think back, she probably would have laughed because she hates running, and she probably would have been like, why did you run that, But I remember running that race, and I was running it, and we got to the point where the 5 milers had to keep going, and then the 2.1 milers would like turn around. And I remember seeing that like 5 mile like distance, and I thought to myself, how could anybody run 5 miles? Like that just was really unheard of I can't even like think or imagine that someone could do that. But as time went on, I did these little 5Ks, and then I got pregnant, uh, my third child, and I just kind of stopped running. And it was a time where we moved to a new city. I had, three little boys, a newborn, trying to find a house, just relocation, everything. And I just didn't even think about running. That was like the last thing on my mind because I was like, I just gotta be in survival mode. And then so then we moved here to the Twin Cities, and then we found a house, and I think it was like March of 2009 when my sister came into town, and I noticed in Minneapolis they have a big running culture, and there was a lot of trails, and I just thought, I should really like start running, because by then I was almost 200 pounds, and I was like, I really need to take care of myself. So I started running, and then all of a sudden I got hooked like, I was like, wow, this is actually really fun. And then I just ran, and I decided to do a half marathon of August of 2009 with no idea of any stuff like running, like the terms, like do you train for this? Like, I didn't know any of that stuff. And so I'm just like, I'm just going to run that half marathon. Even though I was still heavy, I did finish that half marathon. And it was like, that race was like, I can do this. I can really do this. From there, it went from like more half marathons to 5Ks to 10Ks. And then I started running marathons, and I ran like Twin City Marathon here, Chicago Marathon. And that's when I realized that I could do this. Like, it was more like a mental shift that came than even though I had lost weight, it was like more mental. And so then finally, I threw in a fourth child, so let's throw in another child.
Add more to it.
So I had my fourth child, a little girl. And so in 2012, and then from there, I think 2018 is when I started thinking about doing ultras, just because I wanted that challenge. And I did my first 50K like April of 2018. It was probably one of the hardest things because it was really muddy after Minnesota. When about April time, everything gets really muddy. And so I finished that. And then 50Ks and more 50Ks, a 33 miler. And then October of 2019 was my biggest challenge, was my 50 miler. And from there, I think what really kicked in was just this confidence that I never knew I had, and this resilience that mentally I could actually do that. So that's my journey. It's been a halt, but I'm still running, and I run just to stay sane and to get outside, which I love, and just think about things, pray, think about ideas, and listen to podcasts. So it's really kind of a time away from just life right now, especially with the pandemic. I always said, like with my followers, running's never canceled. It's never been canceled, and nature's never been canceled. So I'm just really grateful that I can still run regardless of like what's going on. And so I'm thankful for that. So that's kind of a nutshell of my running journey.
I think you probably echo a lot of people's running journey is you find that outlet. It's time to be outside. It's a time to be in nature. Yeah. So, and I imagine that that's true for a lot of, the Native women in your community. But what gave you the idea to start Native Women Running? How did that journey unfold for you?
Well, like in 2016, I noticed there was like a community of like, you can post your stuff on social media. And it started actually with Twitter, where I started a following of runners, and we would just post our runs every day. And then I think I quit, but I started doing research on like podcasts, like magazines, running magazines and perils. And it seemed like there was like the same type of runner they showcase, or if there was Native runners, it was like very far and few. And then I think it was like 2018, no, probably before that, I just was scrolling through Instagram, and like the main page of Instagram, I noticed that same status quo runner, thin, beautiful, white, blonde. And I remember specifically this one where it was a woman who was very fit, and she's holding a baby. She ran Boston. And I'm like, that is not me. Like, I didn't feel like I could ever like see myself. And then I had a lot of like Native women following me, and a lot of them were just doing these amazing things. And I'm just like, why isn't anyone sharing their stories? And so I asked a few of them, hey, if I started this account, which it's going to be almost 3 years now, I think in January 23rd, I said, would you be able to would you want to follow this? And they were like, yes, I would. And so from there, it's just grown. And it's probably, it's just one of those things where I just wanted to highlight Native women and keep it in a positive manner, because Native women and Native people in general, sometimes we are fighting the stereotypes or these negativity about us being alcoholics, we're poor, we're not educated, and just giving these women an opportunity, especially women too, who think, the running will never see me, or people will never see my running journey. I really love highlighting women who are starting out. I've always been one of those people who is inspired by people in the back, people who are really trying. And a lot of times the running industry or the community, they want to see the fast runner, they want to see the fit runner, they want to see the beautiful runner. And I just was like, what about this person who's really trying? And I want to celebrate that. And so I wanted I wanted to just bring highlight to that and just encourage and be positive in that way. And so I'm very thankful. I feel like people are finally, after 3 years, people are finally seeing us, and it's taken that long. And so that's been one of those things where, I'm not looking at the account saying, oh, I want to get these many followers. I just let it be how it is. And if people want to support us, if people want to follow us, that's great. But I'm just really thankful for those women who are able to just even share personal stories with me through direct message. Or I just talked to a gal yesterday on the phone who I would have never met if Native Woman Running wasn't created. So yeah, that's how it started. And I'm really just thankful for you. Like I said, I give all those women credit for where it is today.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I've enjoyed following for a few years now, and for all the negative things that social media can bring, there are certainly some positives, like your page.
Yeah.
That's been great. Are there specific stories of some of the women you've highlighted that you could share with us?
Yes. Actually, I have a girl. I hope I say her name right. Her name is Brasilia. She's from Saskatchewan. She's a Cree Nation, and she just recently started following us. She said uh, she found uh, she found us somehow, and she what I really liked about her story was she runs for her mom, who was diagnosed with cancer in 2019, and she cares for her mom right now. And I just thought that was really inspiring. And she actually participated in our virtual run this last month, this month. And she ran for her mom, and her being able to share that story really meant a lot to me. And just to know that we were able to encourage her in that, and even encourage her in her weight loss. And so yeah, she's one of the beautiful women that I'm so happy that she's following us, and just thanking her that she's part of this too. Also, another gal named Alfreda, she's Navajo, and I met her like 2 years ago back home in New Mexico, and she's the one I talked to on the phone. Beautiful soul, beautiful woman. And she her husband has been fighting cancer for like 7 years, and uh, his anniversary, he died about almost a year ago. And so her sharing that with me, and how she said running helps her through healing, and how even when he was at his when he was very sick, he would always encourage her to keep running. Like, he would be in the vehicle, she would go to a park, and he said, I'll stay in the vehicle, you can go ahead and run. So I mean, like, if I cry, it's like really emotional, because she said he's always like encouraged me in my running. And those stories I love, like, because I hope that they're inspiring. And she was also telling me that she met a gal in the area who they wouldn't have met because of Native women running. And I hope that women can feel like wherever they are, they can connect with someone, a sister, to encourage them. And so that was really a really good story. And just talking to her and building that friendship with her was really nice, because she was just she's really positive, despite these women are positive despite what they have gone through, is very encouraging. So I I mean, there's many more. I mean, that is just like a tiny bit of what you hear. And there's just many women who are fighting things, but who are doing amazing, incredible things. So I'm really proud of all of them.
Yeah, I think having that community is so important, and being able to see runners that look like you. And do you feel like
Yeah.
movements like yours have helped to maybe change the way traditional media has perceived, as you said, kind of the skinny white blonde, runner that has always been in runner's world and all the
Yeah.
various various media. Do you feel like your movement is helping to change how we perceive runners, that everyone can be a runner? If you put one foot in front of the other, you're a runner.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's slowly, because like, I mean, even before, I mean, like I have never, a lot of the Native people have been running a lot in their life, like all their life. And I feel like I've just been running for the last 13 years. So I wasn't aware of some of these really like good Native runners. So I feel like it's slowly becoming known that we are running, because running is really a part of the Native culture. Like one of the Navajo beliefs is that when you wake up in the morning, you run to the east. So we run to the east to greet Creator so that we can say our prayers. And I remember hearing that growing up, and I never understood what that was and how much, like now in my life, that means a lot, because that's what I prefer. Is I prefer getting up early and seeing the sunrise. And so I think it's getting better. I hope people seek out Native runners. And I always recommend, like people who reach out to me, I always try to recommend other people besides me and saying, hey, why don't you ask her? Because there's a lot of women, when you think about 16,000 followers, there's a lot of women who are not being recognized for what they're doing. And I want them to be highlighted, because I don't want that to be on me, because I always say, I'm not the gatekeeper to running. I'm not the one to say, well, you should ask me because I run this. I always make sure to just give the work to other women. And that gives me true satisfaction to do that, because they're so gifted. Some of them who are working, like I know a woman who works in law enforcement, but she's also in the New Mexico Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women like task force, like, and she does an event every like year in regards to domestic violence. And I'm like, why aren't people talking about her, or so I try to do my best to highlight, and hopefully people will seek those women out, because they're amazing. So I think it is getting better, but it's slowly getting better. And I think with everything that has happened in the past year with Black Lives Matter, I have never gotten so much like emails or people wanting to know more, because you can say Black Lives Matter, you can say I care for BIPOC people, but there has to be a substance behind that. Like we want you to support Native youth at, running programs. We want you to support just events where Native people are the focus. And so I think that's what's really important to a lot of us.
Thank you for sharing that. And that's a good segue to talking about runner safety. And obviously everyone needs to think about runner safety. We need to have a communication plan when we go out, regardless, male, female, no matter who you are. Women have particular concerns and worries about being attacked, but there's even greater concern I've learned from you, higher risks against Native women and girls, because they are murdered at a rate 10 times greater, or violence 10 times greater than the national average. And 84% of Native women experience violence in their lifetimes. Can you tell us a little bit more about these challenges and what we can do collectively to help reduce them?
Yeah, those numbers are real. One of the studies that I share is Urban Indian, Urban Indian Health did a study in 2016 in regards to missing and murdered Indigenous women. There was like 5,712 known cases of missing and murder, and only 116 were actually recorded in the Department of Justice database. Now that is like 2016. I mean, I assume the numbers are much higher. A lot of times when these women go missing, there is like these like misclassification, like there was suicide or exposure, or they ran away. And I think because we're such a low percentage, like, you know, the Native people in the United States make up like 2%. uh, you think about when our women go missing, it's like the numbers are low, so it's almost like we're invisible. There's also the issue of like this jurisdiction. If a woman goes missing or murdered, you have that, you know, they collide the federal, state, you know, the tribal. And so I think they're trying to do better in trying to make accountability. How do we work together so that our women are found, or that there's justice for our women? There's so many different states, and each state has a MMIW task force who is trying to work with just with these people, with the missing and murdered families. And I really recommend one organization called MMIW USA. I know the founder, and she is wonderful. I've spoken with her on the phone, and you know, just a really great organization that does the work that oftentimes people don't recognize. And they're the ones who on their Facebook will put, if a girl goes missing, like her height, her weight, where she was last, and they actually do, um, you know, what happens like after, did they, making sure like, oh, she was found, and making sure they do that. When they post that, always giving us an update. And so like those kind of things. And so I think there's a number of things that are happening. And I think with Native women, we are, I think with Native women in general, this is something that is dear to all of our hearts, and that every Native woman feels like they are part of this movement. Um, and just through like last 3 years, I started a MMIW virtual event. And I always say it was before virtual events were popular. So 3 years ago, I created a MMIW virtual run where I personally felt like I wanted to do this because I cannot go and march or walk for these events. Personally, I can't go to Washington, D.C. and, you know, do these things. So I wanted to, from my perspective as a mother, give everybody the opportunity to do that wherever they were, and like to run in honor and to wear the color red and to bring awareness in that way. So that was really successful. And it was successful, but also I was able to connect with a lot of women who had real stories of their mother was murdered, or their niece was murdered. It was a cold case and things like that, that I feel like was just really moving to me as someone who can connect with these women. And it just breaks my heart. And I think those stories make it even more a motivation to keep doing this, to bring awareness to that. So yeah, I really feel like every Native woman feels really I feel like they're all part of that movement. Like no one owns this movement. Everyone is part of that.
Thank you for sharing that. And, you know, one of the ways we met was you had reached out to us to help host some workshops for your community, which, and unfortunately it was right about the time that COVID hit. So we've done one virtual workshop. We'll be doing another next week for your community. And so we obviously share a passion for safety and running. What advice do you provide to your community on how they can keep themselves safe when they're out running?
Yes. So, you know, just how I explain, I'm really all about awareness, but I was rarely seeing anyone talk about the preventable side of this. I don't say this and say, oh, we're victims, but many times people are out there, you know, doing the red handprint or doing those things, which is really important. But no one was really talking about like, what would I do in this situation? And I've always been adamant about safety. And so when I heard your podcast, you guys were on a podcast, and I was running, and I thought, you know what, this is a really good idea. And I had always thought about that because I've had incidents where, you know, I had a vehicle following me, and I tried, you know, actually I've had like 2 incidents that have happened. And so that just really scared me. Um, and so with our women, I really tried to give advice of like what to do. And so I was able to partner with you guys, just reaching out to you. I reached out to Go Guarded, who we have a partnership with, and just giving them the numbers and how I have a passion for this, and them being able to give us a partnership with their safety items that they have, like with the serrated ring, and just sharing that with my followers. I think too, I put it in my perspective as a mother and having a daughter, like making sure that she's prepared and wanting everyone to be safe in that way. And so on occasionally, I will post like, some of the things that I do, like, make sure you tell someone what you're wearing, like someone, like for instance, I tell my husband what I'm wearing, what path I'm taking and what time I'll be home so that he knows, having a GPS track. Always be aware of your surroundings. That even means like not wearing your headphones, which is really hard sometimes. But
Yeah.
I always am very careful about just being able to just make sure I'm aware of what's going on. Also just like taking some kind of safety precaution. And also I think one of the things people always forget is just running confidently. I think when you are running confidently, it makes a big difference, because if you're over here distracted by your phone, you're like an easy prey, I guess you would say. So just making sure that, you know what, if someone comes, I'm going to fight them off. So I'm really saying run confidently in that way. And because a lot of my women, some of them live in cities, some of them live in rural areas, like by themselves, and they run alone. Especially, I really encourage people to still run by themselves because of just the pandemic. And a lot of our, like the Navajo Nation, they've had lockdowns. And we are so used to having like running groups or, people around us, that sometimes a lot of women will run alone now. And just being able to carry something or personal alarm, or hopefully these kind of things will be able to help them, and providing them like with your workshop so that they could be part of that too. It's that protection. It's that mom in me. Like, I just want to take care of everybody. And so I'm really just really passionate about that. So yeah.
Yeah, that's all good advice. And you're absolutely right about confidence. It changes how we're perceived. And, by being aware, we have a more confident posture naturally. So that awareness is really the most essential piece. So yeah, thank you for sharing those tips, because I feel the same. I want to
Yeah.
give everybody all the tools that they can to keep themselves safe, because I want everyone to be able to enjoy running and often
Exactly.
running alone. I mean, that's part of the joys of running, is being able to process things and be by yourself.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So do you have any advice for anyone listening right now who might feel moved to, you alluded to some of these, but further elaboration on how people might help the safety situation for Native women and girls?
You mean in regards to MMIW? Is that?
Yes, in regard,
I
yes.
think just one of the things I always tell people is to support organizations like MMIW USA. I know there's a few in Canada. I don't know specifically in some in Canada, but like supporting them because they're doing really good work. And I think too, uh, just spreading that awareness everywhere. And I really encourage allies to be a part of this too, because your voice does really matter. Um, because oftentimes we can say what we can, but when we have our allies, it really, really helps. I've always had people asking me, like, we have an event or something, could I be part of this? Could I do this? Could I, it's like, I really encourage everyone to participate in those things. I never say no to people, you know, and so and following just our account and helping and partnerships and things like that is really helpful. I think what you guys are doing with us is really key, and that really means a lot to me as a founder who really is passionate about that. That you're willing to give us this class for our women to take. So those are some ways that you can do following these accounts that really work with Native women, uh, with MMIW. And there's an event that is by an organization out in Arizona. I think I posted on my on our Instagram, and they do good work with sex trafficking, and they help families, and they're having like a virtual. They always have a virtual run, and they have like 5 parts, like series, like, and like one event will be towards Navajo women, and like this time around it's like white Apache people, and so they specifically work with different tribes, and so those kind of organizations really need help, and just uh, donations and reaching out to them and saying, how can we help you? And I really feel passionate about those organizations who are doing the work, and just being right there is really key. And like a lot of us can't do that, and so I'm thankful that those organizations do exist.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that information with everyone listening. So I think at this point, we'll open it up for Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them into the chat. So I'm going to open the chat right now to potentially see any questions that come in. But we did receive a question through Instagram. Someone wanted to ask, who do you recommend following on social media? Are there good maybe groups or individuals that you would recommend that we follow on social media?
There's a lot. There's a lot.
Sure.
But, like I really am. I love like the organizations that really like elevate other people, and like Indigenous Trail is. We just did a partnership with them, and Indigenous Trail Scott and I just did a virtual event, and we basically share stories of Native runners. And so I'm really feel passionate about those people who want to elevate voices. Indigenous Trail. I'm an ambassador for Native Women's Wilderness, which we elevate, encourage women and girls to be outdoors. And so I'm an ambassador for that. And for Red Earth Running Company, I'm their ambassador. So I'm giving them giving them some advertisement here, but like Red Earth Running Company, I'm one of their ambassadors. I think they're the only Native running company, and they are good people, the founder and his wife, and they do good work. And so definitely follow them. Latinas Running, I've gotten to know them in the last couple months. They're amazing. And just they elevate just women who are running too. Also, let's see here. Running Medicine, Wings of America, who help with Native people in the area. Wings of America encourages Native runners, young runners, to just reach for their goals, and they do a lot of good work too. I also want to give a plug for Running Diversity, which I'm one of the board. We're just working with industry, the running industry, to address the systemic racism in the running industry, the running community, and ways that we're helping people to see what we've met with race directors, all sorts of people addressing how the running industry can change and bring more, to be more diverse and inclusive and equal to everyone. Because a lot of times the running itself will say, well, running's for everybody. We welcome everybody. But really, do you welcome everybody? So we're hoping to just change that narrative. So yeah, those are some of the things. There's a lot I could name, but those are some of the few that I can give you right now.
Great. Well, thank you. And we have another question came in that someone is interested in some more examples on how to stay safe while running. I don't know if you have any other, and I'm happy to chime in on that too.
Let's see here. Let's see here. Well, I know one of the things is they have GPS right now. A lot of these, I think on some apps they have where you can be safe, a GPS where, I don't know specifically, but I heard some of my runners saying how their GPS is connected to their phone or their spouse's phone or their significant other's phone, so they can see where they are. So I definitely, I could recommend that. I'm not sure specifically what the company's called, but I heard that that was a good one, and I thought that is really good.
Called Run Buddy. That's good. That will, if you stop moving for a while, it'll send an alert to a predetermined friend, or if suddenly you're moving very, very quickly, like 30 miles an hour, it'll say, that's probably not a running pace, and it'll send an alert. And then there's Strava Beacon and things like that.
Yeah, those are really good. And I think that gets a little bit difficult, especially with Native women who are running like in rural areas. And but I really recommend like a personal alarm. That's one of the things that is really, they're really loud. And so I have that I carry with me too. There's so many different things that you can use. And people always say, well, they have a dog, so if you have a dog, that's great. And then usually when I go home, my family lives in a rural area in New Mexico, and like there's nothing in sight but sagebrush and very high elevation, which really kills me because I'm not used to 7,000 feet, But when I go home, I never used to like worry about running. but in the recent years I have been, because there's a lot of like people who drive who are like oil, they check the oil rig stuff, and it's been a little bit hesitant in that way. And so, and even like my brother, he always comes with me actually, and he rides his bike, or there's a dog that my sister has that I will run with. And I think they even know too that they want me to be safe. And so sometimes now it's like I never used to worry about that, but now my brother's like, hey, I'll ride my bike, or I'll see where you're at. I can see you from where I'm at, you know. So that's just been really something that I noticed in the past year, in the last few years, that my family has even kind of mentioned, especially when I come home to run. So
that's good that you have people looking out.
yeah.
Yes. And for people who are, you know, in rural areas, there are good communication devices. The one I prefer, and it's the one I have the most experience with, I can't, you know, recommend any particular one, but the one I've used is the Garmin InReach Mini. You know, it allows someone to track your route and see where you are. So that's a good one if you are in a place where there isn't cell phone coverage. So, and what we always say about tools is, there are really two considerations, and I think tools are awesome. I mean, anytime you can have something to back up, you know, your physical defense is always good. Alarm is great, but have it accessible, you know, in your hand where you can get it, because if it's in a fanny pack or, you know, in a hydration pack, an attack could be over before you even get to it.
Right.
So having it available is really good. And then know how to use it.
Yes, right. Yes,
You know, to go guarded.
right, yeah.
How are you going to deploy that in a fighting situation?
Yeah.
If you have the alarm, you know how it works. You know, pepper spray is good, but get the dummy version so you can practice, you know, all of
I
that.
totally agree. Yep.
Yeah. So, so a couple of the other question, how has COVID affected the Native community and the Native running community?
Well, for instance, the Navajo Nation it's really affected them. You know, a lot of times I explain how we don't have the infrastructure that you would have here, like in Minneapolis. Like hospitals are far and few. Getting anywhere to like a grocery store, it does take, you know, an hour. I mean, I grew up in an area like that where we grew up, where we had to drive an hour and a half. And my mom has to drive with my sister for the hospital for like an hour and a half to get to the nearest Indian hospital. So the infrastructure does not have the hospitals nearby. So I think that's been an issue. Families live together. Like there's, you know, when we think of like, you know, the families that we think of as like, okay, mom, dad, you know, brother, sister, grandma, grandpa, but with Native families, it's like, you know, you are related by clan, but you also have like grandma, grandpa, and you live in close quarters. And so that's been kind of one of those things. So the Navajo Nations, I'm just giving, you know, Navajo Nation, what I've know about the Navajo Nation because I'm Navajo, but like they've had like lockdowns every weekend. And so I notice with the Navajos that live in the area who follow Native Women Running are still running, you know, they're running through this pandemic, and they have to have curfew during those like times. And so I've been really proud of how it's really got everyone outdoors, and it seems like they're still running despite. That's the nice thing about it, is you can be in the middle of nowhere, there's nobody else. So as you know, here in the city, I always carry my mask with me. It's not required to have a mask outdoors, but if I'm alone, I, you know, take my buff kind of down, but like every time I pass someone on the trail, I will put it over just to be respectful of that. So I think that's one of difference. But I feel like with the Native communities, it's affected us in different ways, but in the same, it's been really similar. But in regards to running, I think there's a lot of races that were done on the reservations, or that's been really impacted. There's a lot of people who've done these big prayer runs and stuff who can't do it this year due to COVID. I know for me, I was supposed to run Boston this last April for Wings of America. And, you know, that was something we were not able to do because, you know, Boston, you know, or unfortunately with COVID, and I'm not sure what's going to happen this coming year. I mean, they say September, but I kind of think that's too soon. And, you know, that was an opportunity for 5 Native kids to go to Boston and spend a weekend there. So hopefully, like those kind of things have been canceled. and like some of them have had workshops and things like that. So those things have to be put on hold. So those are ways that they've been affected. So
Yeah, I know we're a lot of disappointments this year.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So someone asked, you mentioned the red handprint. Can you explain that symbolism?
Yeah, the red handprint, I think what it means is like it's a lot of, you'll see it all over, like in regards to MMIW. And I think what if anyone needs to clarify this, is that the red handprint means it's a significant color, meaning that you can see those people who have passed. And so also with the red handprint over your face means like we've been silent so long that like we don't want to be silent anymore because of this crisis. And so that's been really used on a lot of things, and marches or protests or people who do that. So it's and like I know in Canada they do like the red dress, which also means the same thing. And so yeah, it's been really a movement that's becoming just really powerful. And I hope everybody can just keep supporting that and getting it's just a sad reality that these women are not looked at as important. I've been following one of my followers. Her name is she's an artist, a music artist, and her mom is named Deborah Black Crow, who was murdered in 1976. And I listened to a podcast where they compared her story to uh, Lacey Peterson, I think that was her name, and how Lacey Peterson, they had very similar stories of a husband who murdered them, and they had, they were both pregnant. But when you put them side to side, which is the one that you heard more about? Everyone knows Lacey Peterson's story because it was televised all over the world. Where like someone like Deborah Blackcrow, no one knew about that story. And so I think that's like one of the phrases they use is when Native women go missing or murdered, like Native women get lost in the media, in the data, in the media and data and life. And I think that's really really important. It's really sad, but I feel like the future, it's going to get better, and I think that's what we're fighting for.
Another question someone says, we are developing a youth running program in Seattle and are looking to launch an Indigenous camp for youth. Do you feel it would be best for us to separate the boys and the girls? And do you suggest we get other Indigenous coaches?
Oh yeah, for sure. Indigenous coaches, for sure. And yeah, if you need names, I know people out there who are, who are coaches. So yeah, I
So maybe
definitely,
this person can reach out to you through Instagram.
yeah, there's a lot of talented people out there. So yeah, I definitely would. I don't think we should separate them, keep them together. But yeah, I definitely encourage people to always utilize Native coaches and use them, because you want to see someone as a young person that looks like you who is doing who's running. And I think that makes a huge difference.
Someone wants to know where they can get your t-shirt.
Oh, my t-shirt. Yes. You can find it on my, if you go to Native Woman Running on our profile, our bio, we have a link tree, and it should be on our website. Also, our website is www.nativewomanrunning.com. And so, yeah, so you can find our merch there. So I started doing this campaign because everything that I've been doing has been on my own expense. And so I want to do more, but for you to do more, you got to have you got to have finances. And so it's been really successful. And I have the slogan on the back of the shirt says "Run the Land," which is a slogan that I created to just encourage our Native people to run wherever they are, because they're running. This is stolen land. It's our land. And even though my people were not up here in Minnesota, it's the people's land here. And that a lot of times people in running industry or even outdoor industry will use things out of our land, but never give credit to Native people or even utilize Native people who are part of that. So I really encourage everybody to run the land.
Yeah, and as a trail runner, does that create kind of a special significance, that connection to the land? I mean, that's really key. I think when you're a trail runner, you have that extra special connection.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I think it's when I do go trail running, which I have to drive to trails, it's just really, I think, with Native people, it's a connection to our land. I might not be part of the tribes here, but there is a beauty around it. And then even when I go home, I appreciate I just think me being home, being away from home and then coming home, I never realized how much I appreciate the smell of the sagebrush, the dirt, and the canyons. Those are just that was part of my life growing up. That was my playground. And so now when I go home, I really appreciate that. It just means so much more to me. And it's almost like I want to just kiss, I just want to kiss the ground and say, this is home. And so, yeah, I think trail running, that's what I love about trail running, because it does take you outdoors and you just feel that connection.
Two more questions, maybe a couple more may come in, but one woman asks, I've read that Native American women face more sexual violence than any other group in America. Do you have any insight on that statistic?
Yeah, we talk a lot about colonization, when, there was a lot of stuff that happened when, colonists came, and there was the raping of our women, and just all that brings a light to all this too. This is not a new thing. It's been happening for a very long time. Um, I think you might not be part of that sexual violence, but you've seen it. You've seen, I think, like for me, for instance, growing up, I saw a lot of that. I grew up in a alcoholic home, and um, I saw things happen to my mother, and my father had passed, unfortunately, like when I was 3, and he had already been gone. But with my mother and her alcoholism, how she was treated, like, even though you might not have experienced, like, you actually like saw those kind of things happen. And I'm finding out more that actually happened to family members now, that they had never shared with me. And it's been really an eye opener. So yeah, it's sadly that has just been happening. And you have all these things that happen with our Native people, like genocide, removal of our, being removed from our land, boarding schools, government boarding schools, where our families were taken away, where some of our, family members were, you know, uh, sexually abused in schools, or people that you supposedly trusted. And so it's a high number. It's really unfortunate. It's really sad to know that. And so like for me now, I just want to, because I saw that, I hope I don't get emotional. I try not to get emotional, but like you want to protect like your kids, and you want to protect them from that, of like what you have seen or what you have experienced. So I'm sorry. So anyways, I think that's been like a really I think a really drive for a lot of us women, because we have experienced, or because we've seen that, we're like, we want to make things better. We want to change that so much for our women who are coming up in life. I mean, my daughter's 8, I want her to have a different life than I have. And so that's why I do a lot of the things that I do today, because of her.
I'm going to get emotional. This is so I'm barely holding it in right now. So someone actually says, thank you for your vulnerability. This is extremely helpful and eye-opening. And I think that's true. I think there are so many of us who feel that we want to help change things and make it better for our children. And so
exactly.
A couple more questions come in, one a little bit lighter. So
okay.
Someone asked, is there a race that you're most excited to travel to once the pandemic allows?
Yes, I'm hoping, I really am wanting to do another ultra, but man, it takes so much time. My coach is like, you should sign up for one. But now in Minnesota, we're not even doing any, I think we're slowly doing in person, but I definitely, I think I definitely want to do another ultra, but really I just want to do another marathon. I just am really looking forward to having an in-person race again, whatever it is, because I think you took for granted, I think we all took for granted just the crowds that whole, like, just going to a marathon and all the people, spectators, and just having that, how it feels when you go to a race. It's just the excitement around that. And so I'm looking forward to that. I'm hoping to run still for Wings of America, which I mentioned before. Excuse me, for to run Boston for charity, and that's one thing that I hopefully can still do for them and to raise money for them. So yeah, I think that's probably the next thing that I'm excited about. Yeah, I haven't really. It's not really. I love virtual runs, but it's not as exciting. And so I've been kind of like, okay, but if it's really for a purpose, I try to make sure that I run whenever I can for those kind of races.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It is hard to without that buzz of the crowd.
Yeah, that buzz. Yeah.
I get it. Yeah. Someone else asks, are there any ways that non-Native women runners can respectfully support Indigenous runners? I think you mentioned some of those.
Oh yeah. I
Reiterate.
always tell people like to follow us, follow Native Women Running, and connect with us. And I've had people do that who have like emailed me and say, what can I do to help? People really are right now wanting to reach out. And I, like, for instance, I had someone wanting to, to help, runners or give a gift to a runner for our virtual event. I mean, that means a lot when you want to gift we had a virtual event and someone reached out to me, say, I'm non-native, but I want to help someone, and just giving that gift to someone really matters. Yeah, just connect with us on all our social media, follow us. And I always encourage everyone to be part of our virtual events that we have. There's a lot of people doing our virtual events and I can't always keep up, but if you can find a lot of people who are doing virtual runs that are going to certain organizations, like do those. I mean, I think they want everyone to support that.
Right. And it helps expand that awareness, through everyone's different networks. So
Exactly.
changing what running looks like in the face of running.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. So I'm just going to give it another minute or two and see if there are any other questions that come in. Those are all the ones that I saw pop in the last few minutes. Okay. Not seeing any. I think is there anything what you would like to add? Anything else you'd like to tell us about or add to that we haven't talked about in this discussion?
Yeah, just follow Native Women Running, support us. And yeah, just know that we are, that we do exist. I think a lot of times people look at us in the past like we're still like in this, like, oh, we're living in teepees, but just to know that we are living really similar lives to you all. And I think our commonality is running, and that we can come together to celebrate that. So yeah.
So Native Women Running on Instagram, Twitter, and then I may have seen something about a podcast in the works.
Oh yes, yes, yes. And if I'm in the works of starting my own podcast, which is not part of Native Women Running, but just more of kind of my hobby, just highlighting Native Indigenous runners, just all across Turtle Island. I feel like people ask me to be on podcasts, and sometimes I'm like, not that I don't enjoy it, but I always think of there's so many people that can be asked, and I want to reach out to those people and share their stories, and hopefully that'll be in the works soon. So let's throw that into my busy life, but I've been wanting to
clearly
do that.
Don't have enough going on.
Exactly. I've been wanting to do that for a very long time, and very long time. And I actually had a Navajo a friend out in New Mexico who mentioned that to me about 3 years ago. And she said, you really need to start this. And so I give her credit for giving me that motivation, even more so now, to just share these stories.
Yeah, I think I'm really excited for it. I'm happy for you and can't wait to listen. So that's exciting news. Thanks. Well, Verna, thank you so much for kicking off Runner Safety Awareness Week by talking with me and sharing the stories of the Native women running. Really appreciate your time today and educating all of us and sharing those stories. And thank you. So
yes, thank you for your support. So
my pleasure. Anytime. We are always happy to help. And thank you everyone for joining us today. We wish you healthy and safe running. Just a couple little spoilers about what's coming up for the rest of the week. Make sure you check out the Run Collective website for everything that's going on. Tomorrow's a really full day. I'll be talking with Kelly Heron. You might know her as Not Today, Mother, blank woman who fought off an attacker using the self-defense technique she learned just a few weeks prior. So I'll be talking with her tomorrow. After that is a session I'm personally really looking forward to listening in on is Hollaback will be talking about how to combat street harassment. So that'll be a really exciting workshop. A couple workshops about how to keep yourself safer while running at night, you know, some of the reflective technology that's coming out. So all sorts of fantastic workshops to really look forward to attending many of them myself. And Verna, thank you so much. Wish you safe winter running, and be careful on the ice with those yak tracks. Thank you. Bye, everyone.